I was staring at the laptop screen, the light stabbing my eyes, but I couldn't look away. Amy was talking to the camera again about the people of Chicago, the local cafes, the small parks. Her voice sounded cheerful, but I wasn't listening anymore. I was looking at the reflection in the shop window behind her. At first, I thought I was losing my mind. I rewound the video, slowly scrolling through the frames. A man in a blue coat walked by, slightly tilting his head toward his phone. I recognized the walk, confident, a bit lazy. My heart clenched. I hit pause again. The face wasn't visible, but I was sure. It was Mark. The same Mark she once spoke about with hatred. I will never forgive him, she whispered when we lay in bed, her fingers gliding over my shoulder. Back then, I believed her unconditionally. But what was he doing in Chicago? And why didn't she mention meeting him? I closed the laptop, trying to collect my thoughts. Maybe it was just a coincidence? A thought pulsed in my head, you're just overthinking. I went to the kitchen, poured a glass of water, but my hands were shaking. When Amy returned, her eyes were shining. She hugged me, kissed my cheek, and whispered, "You have no idea how much I missed you." Her lips were warm, but deep inside, something cracked. I saw that face in the reflection, and now I couldn't shake the feeling that she was lying. At night, I lay in bed listening to her breathing, even and calm. She always slept soundly after trips. I tried to relax, but my thoughts wouldn't let me. Her phone lay on the nightstand, the screen dimly glowing from an incoming notification. I looked away. We didn't have a habit of checking each other's phones. I picked up the laptop again, opened that same video, and rewound to the crucial moment. Mark. I was sure. That walk, the strange tilt of the head, hands in pockets. I paused the video and stared at the screen for a long time. Why was he there? Maybe just a coincidence? I didn't know if he lived in Chicago. The last time Amy mentioned him, he was in another city. I tried to find an explanation. Maybe he just moved. Or maybe I was just going crazy from old fears. I put the laptop back on the table, but the anxiety didn't leave me. As if to confirm my thoughts, Amy pressed herself against me in her sleep, and I felt her scent, a light aroma of travel and cool air. I closed my eyes, trying to focus on her warmth, but an icy lump settled in my chest. Why aren't you sleeping? Her voice was sleepy, barely audible. Just thoughts, that's all, I replied, trying not to reveal my tension. She smiled in her sleep and reached for my shoulder. I expected her to say something, but she fell asleep again, as if everything was fine. But what if I'm right? What if my fear isn't groundless? The morning was quiet. I stood by the window with a cup of coffee, watching the passers-by. Amy was in the kitchen editing a new video. Her voice was energetic, but I barely listened. One thought spun in my head, how to ask her about Chicago. Suddenly she laughed aloud, genuine. I turned around. Footage from the last trip flickered on the laptop screen. She clicked the mouse, editing the sound, and, not noticing me, muttered to herself, "What a fool I am." I frowned. I approached quietly, trying not to make any noise. She was rewinding the video back and forth, cutting something. When I leaned over her shoulder, she closed the laptop with unnatural speed. "Everything okay?" I asked, trying not to sound suspicious. "Yeah, just tired from editing," she stretched, her fingers nervously playing with the edge of her shirt. I wanted to ask directly, "Why did you close the video? What were you hiding?" But the words stuck in my throat. I felt her tension. She rarely reacted like that when I just came closer. When Amy went to shower, I opened her laptop again. The video was closed. I quickly went to the project folder and opened the latest file. On the screen, a frozen frame of her smiling, but behind her, in the window reflection, I saw it again. And something else in the background, Mark was holding a suitcase. I closed the laptop again, feeling a chill seep under my skin. A suitcase? Why did he have one? She said the trip was work-related, short and spontaneous. But now it turned out they were together. I remembered her words as if they hadn't planned anything serious together. But the suitcase, it changed everything. Was he traveling with her? I heard the sound of water from the shower and snapped the laptop shut. My heart was pounding as if after a run. I felt like something was slipping away and it left me unbearably cold. Why didn't she say anything? Maybe I really was going crazy? I stood in the hallway trying to gather my thoughts. The hum of water in the bathroom seemed deafening. Why didn't she tell me the truth? Or did she not think it necessary to explain it all? The cold crept inside, leaving only emptiness and bitterness. Pride and trust, two things I had always been proud of in our relationship. But now that trust was cracking. I tried to distract myself with work, but the thought of that video wouldn't let go. Why was Mark's suitcase there? Were they together? Or was it just a coincidence? I went over dozens of scenarios until reality blurred before my eyes. During breakfast, I forced myself to say, "You said Mark left the country a long time ago, right? Amy looked up, smiling with slight confusion. Yeah, he's supposed to be in Canada. Why? Just remembered I tried to sound indifferent and sipped my coffee. Strange, she frowned. Why bring up Mark all of a sudden? I shrugged. There was no point in talking about that video, she could easily explain everything. But her reaction seemed cautious. Usually, she didn't respond that way when talking about the past. When she left, I sat down at the laptop again. I opened her channel and started rewatching old videos every trip. At first glance, everything was as usual, stories, city views, her smile. But now I was looking for something else, objects briefly caught on camera, passers-by, details in the background. And then I noticed it. In every video, if you looked closely, there was the same suitcase, dark, with scuff marks on the corner. Mark's suitcase. A chill ran down my spine. Was she carrying his suitcase around? Or was it his? Why was the same detail present in every city? My world began to fall apart. I tried to convince myself it was just a coincidence. But her words started to sound different. That evening, Amy was sitting at the computer, editing text for a new post. I watched as she frowned, erased words, and typed again as if she couldn't find the right ones. I pretended to read a book, but I couldn't focus, my head was buzzing. Rough day? I asked without looking up. Yeah, a bit, she replied without turning around. Her voice was calm, but I noticed her left hand trembling. I put the book down and approached her. Are you okay? She smiled, but her eyes remained tense. Of course. Just tired. I sat next to her, glancing at the screen. She was closing video editing tabs, and for a moment I saw the frame, the same one from Chicago. Chicago again? I couldn't hold back. Yeah, finishing the video, she closed the laptop. It's late, I don't want to think about it now. I nodded, but inside irritation was boiling. She was avoiding the topic, dodging direct answers. When Amy went to the shower, I opened her laptop again. The opened YouTube tab displayed her search history. The last query, how to remove a reflection from a video. A wave of cold swept through me. Why would she need that? Why suddenly remove a reflection? When Amy came back, I couldn't help myself. Were you editing the Chicago video? She paused, reaching for her comb, trying to hide her confusion. Yeah, there was just a glare, I wanted to fix it. And the suitcase? I blurted out. She froze, not turning around. What suitcase? The one that showed up behind you. The same one in every video. Amy slowly turned. Her face was calm, but something dark flickered in her eyes. You're just overthinking, she said gently. It's a regular suitcase, there are thousands like it. But at that moment I realized she was lying. That night I didn't sleep. I couldn't wrap my mind around it, how could she lie to my face? I sat in the kitchen, listening to the silence. Amy was asleep, covered with a blanket, her face peaceful. I tried to find an excuse, maybe I really was going crazy? I opened her recent videos again. I rewound slowly, scrutinizing every frame. There was that same suitcase in New York, San Francisco, even Chicago. I paused the video, my fingers trembling. I knew it wasn't a coincidence. But what if she genuinely didn't notice it? I tried to silence the pain inside. My own fears were destroying our life. I remembered how, at the beginning of our relationship, she said, I will never lie to you. Even if the truth is painful. I believed her. Completely. But now those words sounded like mockery. I felt anger at her, at myself. Why was I so fixated on that suitcase? Why couldn't I let it go? At some point I decided I just needed to talk honestly. Without accusations. Without paranoia. If I wanted to save our marriage, I needed to be upfront. In the morning, as she was packing for a new trip, I sat across from her, trying to stay calm. Amy, I need to understand. Are you hiding something from me? My voice came out softer than I expected. She froze with a cup of tea in her hands, then smirked. What are you talking about? You've been acting weird lately. That suitcase. Why is it in every city? She frowned, thoughtfully touching her hair. Maybe I just take it with me? Her voice was steady, but I noticed her lips turning pale. It's not your suitcase. It looks different. Amy shook her head as if not understanding. You really think I'm lying? I don't know what to think. My voice faltered and I felt everything inside breaking. She turned to the window and I realized she wasn't going to explain. Left alone in the empty apartment, I suddenly understood. I wasn't scared of losing her. I was scared that I had already lost her trust. Why didn't she say anything? Maybe I really was going crazy? I stood in the hallway trying to pull myself together. The hum of water from the bathroom sounded deafening. Why didn't she tell me the truth? Or did she simply not see the need to explain? Coldness crept inside, leaving only emptiness and bitterness. Amy left early in the morning. I stood by the window watching her taxi disappear around the corner. On the kitchen table, her cup of unfinished tea remained, the lipstick mark on the rim looked strangely vivid. Inside, anger boiled, but mostly at myself. I felt like I was on the verge of breaking. It was like falling into an abyss, fear mixed with determination. I couldn't sit and wonder anymore. I bought a ticket to Denver, the very city where she went for filming. On the plane, I tried to gather my thoughts. Maybe I had really gone too far? Maybe she was right and I was just being paranoid? But something inside whispered, I had to see it all with my own eyes. I found her hotel, a small place on the outskirts of the city. I sat in a cafe across the street and waited. Time dragged on endlessly. I kept replaying her videos over and over. The suitcase, the reflections, her nervousness. Could I have been wrong? And then she appeared. Walking down the sidewalk, laughing, with Mark by her side. He was carrying that same suitcase. I saw them in the glass door of the cafe. Amy adjusted her hair, and Mark put his arm around her shoulders. My mind froze like a broken film reel. I wanted to get up and approach them, but my legs felt glued to the ground. I watched as they walked into the hotel, her head resting on his shoulder. Everything collapsed in an instant. I sat there, engulfed in the cold void, not understanding how it had come to this. Why did she lie? Why him? A sharp pain shot through my chest as if someone had twisted my heart. Suddenly, my phone vibrated. A message from Amy. Filming with colleagues, I'll be back late. Love you. I gripped the phone so hard that my knuckles turned white. Lies. All lies. I stood up, paid for my coffee, and stepped outside. The cold air cut my face. I knew one thing. After this, I could never trust her again. I walked to the reception desk and asked for a room under Amy's name. The receptionist, unsuspecting, gave me the number, 5th floor. I climbed the stairs, trying not to think about what I'd say if I saw them together. The door to the room was slightly ajar. I froze, hesitating to enter. Inside, muffled voices, Amy's laughter. My heart pounded so loudly I could barely hear the words. I took a step closer and peeked through the narrow gap. They were sitting on the bed, Amy showing him something in a notebook. Mark ran his hand through her hair, and she didn't pull away. He said something softly, and she laughed, tilting her head. I stood there, unable to believe my eyes. How do you manage to keep it all hidden? Mark asked, smiling. It's hard, Amy admitted. But I can't do it any other way. I tried to forget, but with you it all comes back. So, you're leaving with me? He pulled her closer. Yes, after this trip, I'll tell him, her voice trembled. I can't lie anymore. I couldn't breathe. I stepped back, my legs numb. The buzzing in my head drowned out their words. She really planned to leave. The message she sent me was just a cover. I went downstairs, stepped out into the street, and stopped on the sidewalk, trying to catch my breath. My face was burning and my chest felt empty. I realized I didn't want to know the details. I didn't want to hear her explanations. My phone vibrated again. Another message from Amy. Thinking of you. Hope your day went well. Lies. Lies wrapped in words of love. I stared at the screen, her laughter echoing in my mind. How could she betray me so easily, smiling and promising happiness? It felt like the world around me had lost its color. Everything had turned gray like an old photograph. I stood on the empty street, unsure of what to do next. I came back home late at night. The city was asleep, streets deserted. The key got stuck in the lock as if the door didn't want to let me in. I finally pushed it open, stepped inside, and closed it behind me. The empty apartment greeted me with silence. On the kitchen table lay her note. Don't forget to water the plants. Love you. I ripped the note off and threw it on the floor. Everything inside me felt tight, like a knot of pain. I sat on the couch without turning on the light. My eyes burned from exhaustion, but my thoughts wouldn't leave me alone. I pictured her laughing with him, telling him she was leaving. She had always been honest, or so I thought. Now that honesty had crashed down on me like an avalanche. The phone vibrated again. Amy sent a photo standing by a monument in Denver, smiling, holding a cup of coffee. The city is beautiful, but I miss you. Lies. In every word. I deleted the message and tossed the phone aside. I remembered when she once said, "The pain of betrayal is the worst. It eats you from the inside." Back then, I hugged her and promised that I would never hurt her like that. And now, the irony, she was the one who had destroyed my world. I got up and walked to the window. Morning had broken outside, but I couldn't feel it. On the floor lay her t-shirt, the one I gave her on our first anniversary. I picked it up and pressed it to my face. Amy's scent, familiar and dear, but now it cut through my soul. I tried to understand how to live with this. How to accept that she hadn't just accidentally deceived me, but did it consciously, choosing lies time after time. Everything we built, memories, trips, late-night conversations, turned out to be an illusion. I thought I could figure it out, that I could find an explanation. But the truth was too much and it destroyed me. My hands were trembling. I knew I didn't want revenge or scandals. I just wanted to disappear, to dissolve into this cold morning where her warm voice no longer hurt. I heard the front door click open. Amy walked into the living room lightly as if returning from a walk. She smiled, put her bag on the floor. "I'm home." Her voice sounded so natural that for a moment I doubted my own conclusions. I was sitting in the kitchen, trying to keep calm. When she came up behind me and hugged me, I felt that same scent, fresh, with a hint of her favorite perfume. "How are you?" she asked. "Fine," I replied, not turning around. She sat across from me and began talking about the trip, the cold mornings in Denver, the outdoor filming. I looked at her face, noticing the little things, the shadow of fatigue under her eyes, slightly disheveled hair. She spoke easily and freely, as if unaware of what I had seen. I couldn't hold it in. "Did you meet with Mark?" Her hands froze on the cup. A slight confusion flashed in her eyes. "Why are you asking that?" "Because I was there. I saw you two together." Amy's face turned pale. She opened her mouth, but no words came out. I could see something in her break. "You followed me?" There was bitterness in her voice. I was trying to understand what was going on. "I saw him hug you. You told him you would leave with him." She lowered her eyes. I don't know what to say. It got out of control. "I wanted to tell you. Honestly. But I was afraid you wouldn't understand." "Wouldn't understand?" I gave a bitter smile. "You're leaving our marriage for the person who once betrayed you." Amy covered her face with her hands. "I thought it was over with Mark, that he was in the past. But when we ran into each other on that trip, everything came back. I couldn't stop it." I stood up and walked to the window. Outside, gray sky, heavy clouds. I realized I didn't want to fight anymore. "I won't hold you back, Amy. If you've chosen him, go." She stayed silent, as if trying to process what had happened. I felt pain, but along with it, a strange sense of relief. I had been on the edge of the abyss, but I no longer wanted to hang there. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I forgive you," I said without turning around. Amy went to the bedroom, leaving me alone with the silence. I took a slow breath in and out. The pain was sharp, but I knew this was the beginning of the end. Sometimes letting go hurts more than holding on, but now I understood. I had to find myself again. I opened the window, letting in the fresh air. The city went on with its life, people rushing about, and suddenly I felt an odd sense of lightness. I would no longer be a hostage to someone else's choices. Goodbye, Amy. Goodbye, past. I'm ready to start anew.